guys, it has been forever. I know. I'm sorry. I know you've been writing me and messaging me and leaving comments and clamoring for videos. And the last year has just been kind of tough. I think, well, 2020 has been pretty tough for everybody, but just a lot going on around here. My boys are dual enrolled in college now, so between teaching high school and their college classes, been real busy with that. Then we had kind of a run on milk when everyone was afraid to go in the store. So earlier this spring, I didn't have any milk to be making cheese. And then it's just been a matter of getting my motivation, getting recipes, getting things ready to be here. So thank you for sticking with us. Thank you everybody for all of your wonderful comments and for watching our videos so much while you were in quarantine. And this has been unbelievable how much traffic we've had in the last 6 months. So I just want to say thank you for that. So without further ado, I've got a cheese video for you. Yay! Today we are going to be doing Derby sage, or Derby with sage. First thing we're going to do is heat up our milk. Now I'm using our raw goat milk like always, and I've had some comments that some people were tired of the huge 8-gallon batches. I know sometimes it's hard to get together 8 gallons of milk. So I'm going to do a 5-gallon batch on this one. I also found that the medium-size hard cheese mold works really well for 4 to 5 gallons, and I've been using that quite a bit. In the 5-gallon pot's a lot easier to wash. So that doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm heating the milk up first thing to 82 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I'm going to sprinkle half a packet of the mesophilic culture from cheesemaking.com over the top of it and let that rehydrate for 5 minutes. So half a packet of one of these. So I lied to you a bit. It's actually supposed to be 84 degrees Fahrenheit. I just came back and checked the recipe. We're using this recipe here on cheesemaking.com site, and I can put a link for that below. You can see they've got this really pretty green cheese. It's interesting. Let's cut into this while we wait for our culture to rehydrate. This cheese has only been aging about 30 days. I'd love to have it done more like 60. But I wanted to get this ready for you guys so I could do this video. Ooh, that's gonna be tough to get through. Now a Derby is kind of a cheddar style cheese that is a little more moist and requires less aging time. Whoops. There we go, can y'all see that? And you can see how the green of the sage, and we actually use spinach to get the green too, forms around the curds. So let's do a taste test and see what we think. It's a nice texture to it. It's nice, soft and pliable. That's delicious. It's very moist and mild. You don't get a whole lot of the sage flavor. I can probably increase the amount of sage that I put in this. I'm using dried sage, so I wasn't really sure how much to put in. Mostly it just tastes like a mild and very moist cheddar. It's good. I'm just gonna stir this culture in. Just using the up-down motion without breaking the surface. And once that's mixed in real well, we'll let this cover it and let it ripen at 84 degrees for an hour before we add our rennet. While we're letting that acidify, I'm gonna get started on the green, which is mostly gonna be spinach. The recipe on cheesemaking.com says to use fresh sage leaves. I don't have any, so I'm gonna follow the recipe for cleaning the spinach leaves, and then I'm gonna add dry sage to our spinach mixture. So I'm gonna pick out about 2 dozen pretty leaves. It's just organic baby spinach. And then soak them in cool water for about 20 minutes. It's time to add the rennet now, and I've mixed 3/4 of a teaspoon of single strength animal rennet into about 1/4 cup of water. And I'm going to very carefully mix this in here, about 10 or 20 strokes, just until I can start to feel the milk gel up a little bit. I've had a bunch of people write me troubleshooting why they're not getting a good curd set, and for several of them I've realized that they're stirring the rennet too long and breaking up the initial set of their curd. So that's about it. Once that's stirred in and settled, I'll put the lid back on it and let this sit for 45 minutes before we cut the curds. While we wait for that to set, let's get the green set up. I'm just going to take our spinach leaves and put them in this food processor. Throw in about 2 ounces of water. And then I'm not using the fresh sage, I'm using dried sage. And last time I used about a teaspoon and it didn't seem to be quite enough, so I'm going to use about 1.5 teaspoons this time. I don't want the sage flavor to overpower, but I do want to be able to taste it. So we'll use about 1.5 teaspoons. And then puree that until it's completely blended and set it aside for the bubbles to kind of go down. That's good. We'll be using that later in the process. I gave this an extra 5 minutes or so to set because it wasn't quite as set as I wanted it to. So now it's time to cut it up into 1/2-inch pieces. I'm going to use my cheese harp to do the horizontal cut. You can use your ladle to do that. And then I'm going to go back and use a knife to do the vertical cuts. And then I'm just going to let it sit for 5 minutes to let these curds heal up. Just going to let that heal for a few minutes and then come back and continue to break these into the 1/2-inch pieces. Now we're just going to stir this for 15 minutes, maintaining the temperature of 84 degrees. I'm going to pop the heat on for just a second. We've dropped it down to about 83. And use a knife while you gently stir for these 15 minutes to break up any of these curds that are still bigger than 1/2 inch. So you can work on those as you go along. Now it's time to cook these curds. You can see how much they've shrunk in the time we've been stirring. They're getting more uniform, and I've gone through, some are still a little big, but I've tried to go through and cut them all into uniform size. So now we're going to raise the temperature up to 92 degrees Fahrenheit over 15 minutes, stirring continuously. We're up to 92 degrees, and I'm going to check some of these curds. See, they're still a little soft. What we want is for the texture to be the same all the way through, and these still have a bit of a juicy center to them. I know it's impossible to see on the video, but I'm just going to keep on stirring these until all of them have that firm texture all the way through and they've lost their juicy middles. They'll probably need another 5 minutes or so, so we'll check back in a few more minutes. I stirred this for an extra 10 minutes or so to get these curds where I wanted it. So let me see if I can get one. There's still a couple that are a little bigger, but most of them now, if you if you grab them and break them open, they're the same texture throughout the whole curd without having an outer skin and then a real juicy center. So at this point, I'm going to let this sink down underneath the whey, and then we're going to dump the whey off the top of the curds. So I'm going to let it sit for about 5 minutes to let those curds sink. All right, just going to get this over here and dump the whey out. I've got a cloth lined colander in there, which I will dump the cloth all into the colander. I'm just going to dump the whey out until I'm down to the curds. we can begin to put the curds into the colander. I'm just going to kind of break them up as I go because I want them to drain more of the whey out. Alright, once those are all in there, I'm just going to leave this to drain for about 15 minutes and then we'll come back to it. Alright, this next step is kind of like a cheddaring process. So I want to gather up these curds that have been draining into a curd mass. And we want to maintain the temperature on them while at about 90 degrees while building up acid and structure to our curd. So I'm going to take this mass, I'm going to put it back down the bottom of our pot, our big pot. And then in order to keep the heat and to add a little weight to it, I use this smaller pot and fill it up with 90-degree water to maintain our temperature. I'm just estimating it's about 90 degrees. Just to keep the temperature of that curd mass so that we can continue to develop acid in there. So take that and set it down on top of your mass of curds. And what you're going to do every 15 minutes, you're going to come in here, rewrap your curd mass, flip it over, and put the weight back on it. So let me move the camera over there so you can see. Chase is not here right now. All right. So in here, let's see, we have our curd mass wound up. And with our pot of water, I'm gonna put the lid back on it and check it in about 15 minutes. We're gonna do this, flipping it every 15 to 30 minutes for about an hour and a half. Okay, it's been 15 minutes and this is the first flip we're going to do. I don't want this sitting down in the whey, so I'm just gonna lift it up, pour the whey out. Unwrap it, flip it over, and put it back in there. So you can still, I want you to see how the curd develops as we go. You see it's still, you can see the rounded curds here. Still, you'll see how it changes and they get flattened out as this progresses. So just gonna flip it over. I'm gonna tie it up tight here. Let's see, give it a, and put the pot back on there. All right, we'll check it again in another 15 minutes or so. Okay, time to flip it again. It's been about 20 minutes and you can start to see how the curds are consolidating and flattening out. So I'm just gonna wrap it and flip it again. I'm gonna do this a few more times. I'm not gonna record it each time. And I'll just come back at you when we are ready to go on to the next step with this, which will be in about another hour, a few more flips. Okay, we've been at this for about an hour and 45 minutes now. And if we look at our curd mass here, I'm gonna pull some apart so you can see. Do you see how it's got this kind of horizontal structure to it? And it's got a more acid flavor, or like smell to it. If you've ever made mozzarella, you can kind of tell when it starts to get that acid smell. I'm gonna go ahead and break these up into about hazelnut or walnut sized pieces. I don't want to cut them because I want them to have irregular edges around the curds for the green of the sage and the spinach to go in. It's going to make it really pretty. So I'm just going to break all this up by hand and then we're going to dry salt these curds. Now I've weighed the bowl beforehand and it's 1 pound, 1 ounce. We're going to use 2% of the weight of the cheese in kosher salt. So we'll, after we get this broken up, we'll measure how much cheese we've got. weigh how much cheese we've got here. We've got, that'd be 4 pounds, 6 ounces of cheese. So I'm gonna convert that into just ounces and multiply it by 2%. Give me a second because I need my calculator on my phone to do that. Okay, that came out to be 1.4 ounces of kosher salt. So let me measure that in here. All right, there we go. I'm gonna put half into my bowl and mix it in real well. And then I'm gonna come back and put the other half in and mix that. That allows the salt to absorb more. It doesn't just draw away and let the salt run off. We want that salt to absorb into the curds. Remember that green stuff we made earlier? It's time to put that in. Of course, my hands are too greasy to open it. See if I can get this open. There we go. And we're just gonna pour that over and mix that into our, smells sagey. Mix that. And this is what's gonna give us that pretty green color all around our curds. And you see what I mean by having the uneven edges where we ripped it instead of cutting it, how that's gonna be real pretty when we press it. It's gonna give it that irregular kind of jigsaw look. All right, now it's time to press this cheese. So give me a second and I'll grab our mold. All right, it's time to put our curds into the mold now. So I'm going to use this medium hard cheese mold. This is from cheesemaking.com. And start putting the, throwing curds around. Start putting the curds in there. I'm just gonna use my knuckles to push them down as I go, because we don't want big air pockets. This is a compressed, firm, you know, no air bubbles kind of cheese. So let's get that in there. You can see that salt drew out a lot of whey on the bottom here. A little bit left over from our spinach sage mixture. Okay, once we got all that in there and pressed down, I'm going to fold the cloth over it and put the follower on and put it in the cheese press at 15 pounds, give or take, for 30 minutes. And then we'll take it out and flip it. So I'm just going to fold that over the top, put my follower on, and I'm about to leak whey all over my counter here. You know me, I love making a mess. All right, get on there. This is a bit wider cloth. My other cloth, I got some cheese curds stuck in it, and I've got to get it cleaned out. So I'm stuck with this wider, it's like a bar towel from Walmart. Okay, there we go. Just gonna put it over this bowl and run it to the cheese press. All right, so coming back over here, I have a little dish to catch the whey. I've got the aluminum foil so I don't get my wood all wet. I've got it all sitting in a big cookie tray. I'm gonna press this down a little bit more because it wasn't down all the way, but I didn't want it to drip earlier. So make sure the lid's all the way in. And then I don't like how this fits here so well, so I use this lid. It fits right in there. It gives it a more even pressure on that. And we're gonna do about 15 pounds of pressure. For 30 minutes, and we'll come back and flip it then. All right, it's been 15 minutes and we've had a steady drip of, this is jammed in here well, a steady drip of whey the whole time. Gosh, I wish I had my other cheesecloths. This one is ridiculous. I'm just going to flip this over now, and we're going to press it at 20 pounds for an hour at this point. So you can see they're starting to consolidate, but they're still kind of loose together there, which actually worries me a little bit. Let's see if I can do this. I might should have pressed it longer. Don't want it to fall apart. Okay, can you see that? Now the point of slowly raising the weights on all of this is so that you can express all the whey and get rid of all the holes in between these curds. So you get a nice solid cheese. If you went ahead and just pressed on the heavy weight right off, some of that whey would get trapped inside and some of the air bubbles and things too. So what we're trying to do is get all that worked out. Let's put this back on. So an hour at 20 pounds next, and then we'll flip it again and then raise the weight again. Okay, it's been another hour, and I'm going to take this and flip it and increase the weight again. I just want to show you how much it's consolidated since we did it last time. See how those are knitting and coming together more compared to how it was last time we did this? So this time I'm going to flip it, and we're going to do 35 pounds for 2 hours. And then after that, I'm going to leave it overnight. I'm not going to show you the next flip just because it's time for me to fix dinner, and it's getting late and I'm tired of videoing right now. So I'm going to leave it then 2 hours at 35, come flip it again before bed. I'm going to raise it up to about 50 pounds, or about as much weight as I can throw on this thing. Remember with cheddars, you really can't overpress them. You want all these curds to knit together. And so just go ahead and throw a whole lot of weight on it. More is more in this case. So this time 35. 2 more hours, flip, go to 50, and leave it overnight. And we'll see you tomorrow. All right, it's reveal time. This has been pressing overnight and really most of the morning. Let me take these weights off of here. We'll see what we've got. There we go. That seems to have knit real well. There's a little bit on the bottom here where the cloth was thicker, but after a couple of days that'll settle down. I'm going to leave it on a rack to dry for 2 days, flipping a couple times a day. After that I'm going to wax it. We've got a video, the Don't Try This at Home method for cheese waxing. Chase put that up here. So you can click on that and follow the video to wax this. And then I'm going to age it for about 60 days. The one that we cut earlier was only aged 30 days because I wanted to see how it was so I could bring you the video. I'd like a little more aging on it, but it was delicious. So thanks for watching. I've got a couple other cheeses that we're working on this summer to see if they turn out. And if they do, we'll be back with more videos. Thank you. Please take the time to share and subscribe.